Your passport should never become an NFT. Your identity should not be a token, but the rights your identity unlocks, that is where tokenization gets interesting. And it's the key to understanding the EU Digital Identity Wallet. It is not a crypto wallet or a public identity token. It is Europe's new trust layer for digital identity. In simple terms, it is a wallet where a person, resident, or business can hold verified digital credentials. Things like identity data, age, residency, qualifications, permits, company representation, or other official attributes. This is where verifiable credentials become important. A verifiable credential is a digital statement that can be trusted because it is issued by an authoritative source and can be cryptographically verified. It is not just a PDF, a scanned certificate, or a database record. It is a credential that carries proof of who issued it, who it belongs to, and whether it has been changed or revoked. Credential verification works via signature checks against trusted lists, published keys, and revocation is handled through status lists. Not on-chain. It is under user control. For example, a government authority could issue a residency credential. A university could issue a qualification credential. A regulator could issue a permit. A company registry could issue proof that someone is allowed to represent a company. So instead of uploading a passport scan, a utility bill, and 3 PDFs, a user could present a verified proof from the wallet. Because today, onboarding often means collecting and storing too much manually checking documents that create cost, friction, and risk. EUDI Wallet points to a different model. Verify the fact, request less data, make the business decision faster. But this is where many people make the wrong jump. They hear digital identity and blockchain and immediately ask, how do we put identity on chain? This is the wrong question. Public as well as private blockchains are bad places for personal identity. It is because they are permanent, harder to erase or revoke them. Also, once you turn identity into a public token, you make future tracking easier. So the better question is, what should verified identity unlock? At Espeo, our view is simple. Do not tokenize people. Tokenize rights. EUDI proves eligibility and the product decides what happens. The next step could be access to a service, venue pass, subsidy voucher, permit, delegated business permission, or in regulated finance, the right to participate in a specific investment product. The architecture is straightforward here. First, the user presents a credential from the EUDI wallet. Then, a verifier checks that the credential is real, valid, and not revoked. The policy engine applies the business rules. Is this person eligible? Is this company authorized? Is this investor allowed to access this product? Is this under the right jurisdiction? And many more. Only after that, you issue the right. Sometimes that right should stay in a normal business system. In other cases, it can become a token. A simple example is an event pass. First, the user presents verifiable credentials. They prove, for example, that they are over 18 and resident in a certain country. The system verifies those credentials, but it does not need to store the underlying personal data. Then, based on that verification, it issues a temporary, non-transferable, revocable digital pass. This pass is not the user's identity, their date of birth, or their passport number. It simply says that this verified holder has the right to enter this venue under specific conditions. At the venue, the user does not need to reveal their personal data again. They only prove that they hold a valid pass. The system checks whether the pass is authentic, whether it has not expired, whether it has not been revoked, and whether it has not been already used. If those conditions are met, entry is granted. This is not necessarily tokenization yet. It becomes a tokenized right only when the pass, permission, or entitlement is represented as a token in a shared ledger or blockchain-based system. Without that ledger layer, we can call it a verifiable digital pass or a digital entitlement. That distinction matters. The verifiable credential answers the question, does this person meet the requirements? The digital pass answers, has this person been granted this specific permission? And the tokenized right answers, is that permission represented as a token that can be verified, transferred, restricted, revoked, or settled through a ledger-based system? The same logic applies in finance. In one regulated tokenization project we worked on, the product was connected to tokenized real estate investment. The interesting part was not just issuing a token. That was the visible part. And the real work was the system around it. Investor onboarding, KYC and AML checks, wallet and custody flows. Before anyone could hold the tokenized investment right, the platform needed to know whether they were allowed to participate. But that does not mean the chain needed to know who they were. It means the platform needed a reliable eligibility decision. This is exactly where EUDI becomes interesting. In European version of this kind of product, today's document checks could become wallet-based proofs: identity, residency, company authority, or investor status. Once eligibility is proven, the platform issues the right and the token layer can enforce rules later. For example, if a tokenized asset can only be held by eligible investors, the system can block transfers to wallets that have not passed the required checks. The personal data stays off-chain. The enforcement rule result can be reflected in the product layer. That is the major pattern that allows to record only what the business actually needs. This is also where Espeo's role becomes very practical. Few blockchain companies tried to build something like an EUDI wallet. It's not necessary. Every trust list connection doesn't need to be built from scratch. There is a big opportunity to design the product workflow around verified identity. That means answering questions like, what credentials do we need? Who's the issuer? What data can we avoid collecting? This is where engineering experience matters, and a serious EUDI-enabled product is not just a wallet login button. It needs the full product layer around the wallet: verification, business rule, fallback checks, payments, admin tools, auditability and compliance controls. This is the product layer Espeo knows how to build. We have seen this in regulated fintech systems, and the demo is never the hard part. The hard part is making the flow work when a user fails verification, a document expires, transaction is blocked, a regulator asks for evidence, or an operator needs to reverse or investigate something. This is what production means. So the opportunity with EUDI is not to put identity on chain. The opportunity is to connect trusted identity to real business workflows. For banks, that may mean a smoother onboarding and stronger controls. For marketplaces, it may mean verified sellers, delegated permissions, or restricted access. For tokenization platforms, it may mean regulated rights that can be issued, transferred, blocked, or revoked based on verified eligibility. So, if you are exploring EUDI, blockchain, or tokenized entitlements, do not start with which chain. Start with what rights are we issuing and what needs to be enforced in production. That is where the real design decisions live. EUDI can prove eligibility, and Espeo can help to design what happens next. Do not tokenize people. Tokenize the rights their verified identity unlocks. As always, stay on the block to stay ahead.